Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Claw Office. Last week, a small group of us biked from a little town in northern Michigan, Mackinac, to a town in southern Michigan, Marine City. And we enjoyed the time off and the time to bike and to bike through a variety of little towns through Michigan, and we enjoyed just that time together. But on one of the days in particular, as we were biking from Clare, Michigan to Bay City, Michigan, what was going to be one of our shorter days ended up being one of our longer days because we had to reroute around the area that had experienced significant flooding because of the collapse of the dams, the Edenville Dam and the draining of Wixom Lake and Sanford Lake. And so we actually rerouted north up into Gladwin County and biked around that area. It was amazing to bike by what once was Wixom Lake and is now just a river, and see the devastation that the flooding and the dam collapse had caused, both in those territories and then south of that all the way down into Sanford and into Midland. But it's really illustrative, because as you biked by those territories and those areas that had been significantly damaged by water and flood, it's illustrative of the fact that, man, if you were living nearby, you wanted your house to be built high in a dry spot above the flood line, and you also wanted to be built on a solid foundation, because if your house was built low, it was going to be flooded, and if it didn't have a good foundation, it was going to be swept away in the devastation of the flood caused by collapsing dams. Now, that picture is something similar to what Jesus referred to and spoke of on the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 7, toward the end of his sermon, he said this, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." So we saw a visual of that in real life, but Jesus uses this as a metaphor, as a teaching illustration. You want your house built dry and on a firm foundation, and that firm foundation is the rock. And the rock, according to this, is the rock of Jesus Christ and his words. There's a couple illustrative pictures that are painted for us in the Bible as it relates to judgment. There's a day that we're going to stand before God, and our life is going to be presented before him, and you're going to want your life built upon the rock of Jesus Christ and upon the foundation of his word. But another illustrative picture of judgment not only is water and flood, but also of fire. And it references this in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, that while we may have a foundation upon the rock, we are to be building a structure upon that rock. And that structure that we build with the deeds of our life would either be wood and straw or costly stones and precious metal. And it talks about the fire testing the quality of each one's work and the structure that they've built with the life that they've lived. And of course, the fire will consume wood and straw, but it will purify precious metal, gold and precious stones. And so this is just an interesting encouragement for you and me today, is just thinking back through this last week's bike trip and some of the devastation that we saw caused by flood. And it brought up the reality that, man, there's a day that we're going to stand before God and our life will be examined. Have we built our life upon the rock of Jesus Christ? And if not, what are we building our life upon? What foundation exists for our life? Because we're building our life upon some foundation. Is it based upon our own thoughts, our own wisdom, the collective wisdom of our society or others? Or are we building our life upon the foundation of the risen, eternal Son of God, Jesus Christ? And having found ourselves on that foundation, are we building a structure there as we believe him and take him at his word and live a life that brings him pleasure and fulfills our purpose? And are we constructing a dwelling of precious stones? So that's my encouragement to you and to me today, coming from the scripture and coming from a memory of last week's trip. But I trust you and I are building our life upon the rock of Jesus Christ and flourishing as people made in his image today. But God bless you. Have a good day. We'll circle back with more encouragement later this week.